So hello, welcome to the kitchen at Ford Green Hall. This is in the far room of the house, the far wing, built in 1734, so it's a Georgian addition to the property. Originally all the cooking would have been done in the hall, which we've looked at on another day, and the tea room where you come in another brick wing built in 1728 would have been the original separate kitchen, but we've got evidence that this room was used as a kitchen at one point as well. I'll just have a little wander around with you. There we go, we've got a well laden dresser there, pewter, expensive glassware, and some gingerbread moulds. We've got a nice collection of gingerbread moulds there. Gingerbread would have been expensive at the time because of the ingredients, the spices would have been expensive. Our friend there, laying us some eggs. We've got a big table here with lots and lots of stuff on. One of the interesting things we've got here is something called the chafing dish. Okay, so we'd have, it's a ceramic pan or a ceramic dish with a little hole underneath there. It would have been filled with charcoal, lit as is on the table, and it shouldn't do too much, make too much smoke, so you don't need a chimney. And then you can put a pan or whatever on there. I think they're just resting in there till they move somewhere else. They shouldn't be in there. Very handy to use. You can use them in rooms to warm the rooms up. You can cook with it. You can, well, surgeons would definitely heat the tools up before they cauterise your wounds. Oh, lovely. Spice box, very expensive stuff in there. And a sugar loaf. Sugar would have come all the way from the West Indies in the 17th century. Very rough translation of money from 17th century to now. You're looking at roughly £300 worth of sugar there. About the same size as a bag of sugar today. So all that sugar can be turned into something called marchpane. Mixed with almonds, made into a paste, baked, and then you can make all sorts of things with it. We've got some moulded shapes there, and we've got a dragon round a castle there. Very much to show off with. Hampton Court Palace, their kitchens, they've got an entire room devoted to making marchpane, or marzipan as we know it now. There's our old friend, the leather jugs, that we talked about, I think in the first video I did. Another dresser with some very nice replicas of slipware, pottery, Thomas Toft, etc. There's a fine collection in the Potteries Museum in Hanley if you want to look at some originals when they're open. Small fireplace there with a little bread oven. The fireplace, really, when the house was this part of the house was built, wouldn't have been the small one, it would have been the whole area that you see there under the beam. We've got a food cupboard up the corner. We've moved a lot of the stuff that was out in the exhibition room. Obviously when we do open again we can't really have people handling objects, so these will be just behind the rope. It's a shame, but they'll be back out for handling at some point, no doubt. Here's a hand quern. Grain kept better as grain rather than flour, and some houses would have ground the grain to make the flour every day. This is a quernstone, so you just grind enough for each day to make the bread. And that's the origin of the phrase the daily grind. Ford Green Hall was a dairy farm primarily, so we've got some dairy equipment, butter hands for squeezing the buttermilk out of the butter, else it'll go off, butter pots, and I can't remember the name for that. A butter churn, that's it. The little bread oven would have been filled with stick. Burn the stick, that heats the oven up. You take all the burning wood out once the heat's up, and plug the top and plug the door like that. Seal it up with dough and it will cook the bread. It's the heat from the oven, not the fire inside. Consequently, the bread would come out with a bit of ash at the bottom, so they would cut the bread that way, along that way. The more important people of the house get the top off, and I'm sure you've heard before, the poorer people would get the bottom half. The richer folk would have the upper crust, and that's where we get the phrase the upper crust from. Ford Green Hall probably had a big bread oven outside in some of the outer buildings rather than one in here. It would have been having to make lots and lots of bread. And a brew house as well, probably, for beer. Bread and beer, two of life's staples. Our friends up there. Some hares and some pheasants and ducks. Vegetarians look away. They're quite old now, they're quite antique. They're not carrots, they're candles. The herbs hanging on the beams from the garden. That's how you dry your herbs. So you can have herbs in winter. Nice corner cupboard. Georgian, maybe Victorian, I'm not quite sure about that one. And we're back to the big dresser there. So I hope you've enjoyed a little look around the kitchen. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much.